Hello everybody and welcome to parksbros. It's Drew here, and we have some incredibly exciting news out of Six Flags Magic Mountain today, and that's the fact that they've officially, publicly filed and have been approved for their permits on their 2026 roller coaster. Today's date is January 6, 2025, and earlier today it was official that the permits for the 2026 roller coaster coming to Six Flags Magic Mountain were approved. So, before we dive into them a little bit more, they are publicly filed and accessible and available for you through the LA County permit website. That will be linked below if you want an in-depth look at all of this. But realistically, through these permits, the only things we don't know are the opening day, the theme, and of course the color scheme. Although there have been hints to the last two of those on some of the construction walls around the area. So this ride is going to open sometime in 2026, and as Six Flags has stated as of a couple months ago, this roller coaster is going to be a first in North America. Now, looking deeper into the permits, it actually might be a first in the world. We'll have to wait and see on that. As the permits do clearly state, this is going to be a VEKOMA roller coaster called a Thrill Glider. Now, what that exactly is, we're not entirely sure, as if you look up Thrill Glider on the VEKOMA website, it just shows their suspended thrill coasters, meaning this ride will be suspended or inverted, having the track above you. But outside of that, we only have the idea that one of their concepts from many years ago will be what this ride is. And that's a suspended motorbike coaster. So with that, you'd be sitting underneath the track. However, your seating position would be like you're on a motorcycle, just like on rides like Pony Express. And this would offer a really interesting idea of a ride, especially if it is a launch coaster, which it does seem to be looking at the permits, as on long straight sections of track, the individual footings don't spread out further. In general, I think this is a really wacky concept, honestly, especially considering I've been on rides like it in the past, at least with similar seating, such as Pony Express. And if you're on the East Coast, this is something like Tron Light Cycle Run at Magic Kingdom, where you lean forward with the restraint sitting on your back. And I know for a lot of people this might be a little bit more uncomfortable, but it does offer a very different ride experience than just sitting upright. Now let's start talking about the site itself. Now, the Golden Bear Theater was torn down over a year ago now to make way for this brand new experience. When it comes to this site, it is in a very awkward space. The seating arrangement was made to contour into the hillside, and speaking of which, this is one of the most mountainous parts of the entire park, with fairly extreme changes in elevation that will make it harder for this ride to be built overall. But then again, the name of the park is Magic Mountain. It's not like that was an unexpected thing. But looking over the site plan itself and knowing where markers are throughout the park, this ride is going to take over that space. Many trees are going to be coming down over the next coming months, and there will be tons of grading, realistically leveling out the landscape in a different way. Certain peaks of this hillside will be dug away, whereas other gaps will end up being filled with dirt. And just like we've seen on a handful of roller coasters in the recent past, including the 2026 roller coaster Fast and Furious going to Universal Studios Hollywood, you'd know that this is probably the main part of the project. This takes the longest amount of time, as it has to be precise and you have to allow time for that ground to settle. So like I just stated, expect lots of trees to come down as well as lots of ground movement, and expect it specifically all the way towards Gold Rusher and past parts of Full Throttle Station, all the way to the other side of the Golden Bear Theater where the entry walkway was on the right hand side. But I will say something that I was worried about was Gold Rusher in the future, and it seems like that's staying. At least it's still in the permit filing renderings, but this new track will be very, very close to where there's that crossover moment for that ride. The station building is just left of where the stage was, with the main queue coming forward and to the left of that even, and ADA access will be to the right-hand side, switching back and forth as it slaloms up the hill. Over the actual stage itself, there seems to be two sections of straight track. Whether that's two individual launches, a brake run and a launch, or something else, we'll just have to wait and see. But the footings themselves seem to be perfectly straight and don't get wider or narrower, which I would say alludes to the idea of this being a launch or brake run. And considering one of these tracks leads directly into the station, it has to be one of those, right? There also seems to be a pretty major retaining wall that will be on the right-hand side of the stage, actually stage right, with parts of the track actually going above the major seating area, which, looking at the grading that they have filed, lots of those seats will be covered with dirt eventually, but it doesn't seem like they're putting any sort of footings in this old concrete, outside of potentially one or two at the very top of the stairs. And again, if you would like to get more specific about all of these changes, make sure to check out the permit linked in the description below. One interesting thing is we will see a two-tiered station, with the main station portion being on that second story of this building and the first story being its electronics room. And there does seem to be the idea that we will be on a ramp at some point that is not directly connected to the ground. Looking at the topographical permit showing how high and low all the elevation changes are, you can actually see the outline of the layout itself. So we actually know what the layout is going to look like. It is pretty faint, pretty tiny, but I'm going to highlight that stroke around here right now, and you can see the entire layout is here. Now, we don't know exactly which way we'll be facing out of the station, whether it's left or right, but I will say regardless, there is a left-hand turn as that first element, and it also seems, interestingly enough, there is a station flyby moment. Whether it's underneath or above, we'll have to wait and see, but there is a part of the track that swoops through the station, so I'm going to be interested to see how that goes. It also seems to go over part of the queue and exit queue towards the bottom of that hill, and it even seems to do a little bit of a fake out over the top of the theater seating area with an S-curve section that will most likely swing you over the dropping hillside. Honestly, looking through all of these permits, I will say this seems to be one of the most ambitious rides they've built in the past 20 years, at least in terms of ground movement. It's really going to be insane to watch all of this grading happening in real time, and the remnants of the Golden Bear Theater going the wayside. But I am very excited to see a brand new terrain coaster at this park that is hailed as a mountain. And alongside that, I do hope that they end up planting some trees again, or can keep a lot of the trees that are already existing in that space, although I know it will be hard. Overall, though, this is incredibly exciting to see this plan finally approved. I know they went through multiple iterations through this process to make sure that they could get that approval, as there were a handful of permits that were rejected prior. But it's official, as of the first week of 2025, which, goodness gracious, can't believe we're there already, that we're getting a brand new coaster at Magic Mountain in 2026. And who'd have thunk, it's a brand new VEKOMA at that, and the first in North America. That's just genuinely super exciting. There's genuinely so much to be excited for with this ride, and I know a lot of the extreme thrill seekers that visit Magic Mountain might be a little bit disappointed by this, but the park has needed something to fill these gaps between the most extreme coasters literally in the world and Gold Rusher. Some people would argue West Coast Racers, but in my mind, that's still a little bit too extreme to fill that gap. It inverts 4 times. But something like this has the potential to really fit that gap perfectly, and I guess we'll have to wait and see if it does invert or not. Regardless, I can't wait to officially make it back up to Magic Mountain. As of today, Cedar Fair and Six Flags passes with the all-park add-on have access to visiting other parks from the other chain. So if you have a Knott's Pass and you add the all-park add-on, you're able to visit Six Flags Magic Mountain as of today with that pass, which I would argue is the most exciting part of this whole merger. But let me know, what do you think down in the comments below? Are you excited for this brand new roller coaster at the park? Are you concerned about anything? And what would you like to see from it? What do you think the theme is going to be? What do you want the color scheme to be like? I'm curious to see what you guys all think, and I would really appreciate it if you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe, because we're going to be covering this coaster as well as many other things that will be happening in the SoCal coaster community, with updates and more from Knott's, SeaWorld, Magic Mountain, Universal, and more. But again, I want to say thank you all so much for watching. I really do appreciate it, and I hope you're just as excited as I am. But until next time, we'll see you on the next ride.